have 10 wins and 13 losses, which is, again, a big change from the last couple of years going into it. This past weekend, we were fortunate enough, we were over at Pontiac Notre Dame Prep for a team tournament. We finished second place at that. And I believe at this point in time, we're fourth in MAC Gold right now that we're looking to try to secure.
That's excellent.
Finish there. So, yes, it's going well.
So, coaches, and Bill, this is your second year together as co-coaches. What are some of the things you've done differently and maybe some of the improvements you've made?
Well, you know, as you get more familiar with the system and each other, we're doing a better job probably at communicating in advance, being proactive. And we just noticed actually today at practice, at times we're starting to see and think the same way. Now sometimes that's bad because you want to see different viewpoints,
Sure.
but at the same time it means sometimes we're starting to get a little more on the same page. And by that probably means I'm starting to develop and mature as a coach, much like the wrestlers are developing as wrestlers, because Coach Denny has much greater experience as a wrestling coach than I do. So it's nice that I'm starting to see things a little bit better.
Good. Dave, what are some of the strengths of this year's team?
Part of it is a real solid core group of seniors. And not so much with their ability to compete, but with their leadership. And it really does set a tone. It sets something for the younger wrestlers to strive for. The practices are very much controlled. There's a lot of times where Bill and I really don't have to do anything in that regards there. They know what's expected of them, and again, by these guys leading by examples, and not just Hunter and Jared, but several of our upperclassmen are doing a very good job of setting a tone, and that's going to pay off huge in the years to come when these guys see that this is what the expectation is coming into it. And so that certainly is part of it there. The other is there seems to be just a really neat receptiveness to everybody there, that there's a tremendous respect that they display for us as coaches. When we're talking, they're listening. When we ask them to do certain things, they get on it. We'll always have those challenging individuals in there, but that also makes it kind of fun. But for the most part, they do a nice job from that standpoint, and so it makes it more enjoyable as a coach.
Well, it's got to be part of the personality of wrestlers to be a little bit scrappy and competitive. Otherwise, you don't try wrestling, right?
Yeah, it is a different group. Yeah, at times. So yeah.
So, Bill, one of the things I noticed in watching and following your page there on Facebook, which I really enjoy, there seems to be a lot of opportunities for a number of different kids to compete, not just at the varsity level, but you have opportunities for the novices and the younger wrestlers to get out there and do some matches as well.
Yeah, there's a real good balance to that, because it's, again, as you alluded to prior to our discussion, that it's man on man. And the tough thing for that sometimes, being that we have some young wrestlers, you sometimes have freshmen that are going against guys that look like men to them, that are much bigger, much stronger, much more experienced, much quicker. And so some of those young guys are thrown to the wolves sometimes and have to compete at a very high level, or against guys at a high level, and it can be frustrating. So it's a nice balance that we're able to also get to some novice tournaments and JV tournaments for those same wrestlers that were maybe competing against a kid that's like I said, probably at a higher level, and now all of a sudden he can compete and get some success, and not always having your face smashed against the mat, literally and figuratively, and now all of a sudden you can have some success. Because there are some advantages sometimes to having your face kicked. You know, you learn a lot of lessons from it, and you get a little tougher sometimes. But having it all the time, you know, to have that happen to you, it can be pretty old. So it's been nice to have that balance.
So, Dave, one of the things, we talked about this before the show started, is that, you know, as wrestling is extremely fast, and not that other sports aren't. Obviously, many sports are fast, but the time on a mat is extremely limited. What's your approach as the coach when you're sidelined at the mat watching one of your wrestlers compete right then during the match itself?
Well, as a coach, it's something that kind of evolves over time. And I know early on when I was coaching and right when I was coming out of competing, I had a tendency to be very, very intense on the mat. And started recognizing over time, and having known as a competitor, when you're competing, you don't hear a whole lot going on out there. It's kind of like everything is white noise, but you'll select a couple of voices that you can key in on. And so one of the things that both Bill and I, you know, have learned over time is that to sit there and just constantly holler it really is not all that beneficial.
Right.
You know, and so they're waiting to pick out those key phrases or key words. And so when we're training and when we're doing moves, we try to stick with very simple terms so that it'll hopefully jar of memory and get them that opportunity for it. But it's kind of been that way for me with each year that goes by. I'm actually a lot more, mild-mannered on the sideline is necessary there, because I don't think that there's any benefit. Now, we'll get excited with the kids, or we'll get on them if we're expecting more out of them, or they're not performing the way we think that they're capable of it. But to constantly yell things out there, I just haven't found to be beneficial, and I don't recall it when I was competing that it helped me a whole lot. And whereas you'll see other teams and other coaches where it's a barrage, the whole time. So for the most part, we think that we're getting through to them, and we'll see them react when we holler things, and that's also rewarding from us too. Is that when we see things happening in the match that we covered recently in practice, or that we're focusing on, and they're able to key in on it and make it happen.
And it's kind of neat to use an analogy, but it's kind of like old school football in that you practice, you work all week to prepare them so they can run the game themselves. It's kind of like the old 70s quarterbacks that called their own plays.
Yep.
These are the 70s. Yeah. This is Bradshaw and Staubach over here. They're calling their own plays
They
on
have
the
no
mat.
idea who that is.
But we do. So they're calling their own plays. So it's kind of rewarding in another sense. It gives them a lot more autonomy and probably some motivation during practice to really understand what they're doing, because they're on the mat, like they said, on their own.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's too late by then.
Yeah.
If you have to solve something there, it's too late. Like you said, the speed is so fast is that they've got to anticipate it. So, and then we'll take those notes. And Bill does an outstanding job of every meet and with every wrestler jots down notes, so that things that we can follow through on the next day of practice.
So one of the unique things about wrestling, and it's not, I don't think, really true of other sports, is it's obviously divided by weight classes. And you can have, I'm going to have the wrong weight probably, but two best wrestlers be exactly the same weight, 154 pounds or whatever it might be. I mean, as coaches, how do you make the decisions in terms of, and you want both of them to wrestle at the varsity level that week because they're two of your better wrestlers. What kind of goes into your thought process in deciding, who do we ask to move up and who do we want at that weight? Is it always the better wrestler that moves up, or is there some other considerations that go into it?
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, first of all, it takes care of it in the wrestling room, because we have wrestle-offs, challenge matches. So if there are two guys that are at a similar weight class, and that also is a nice thing, that whether as a coach or another wrestler thinks he's a particular wrestler is better, any wrestler can challenge and say, I think I'm better. I think I'm ready to at least get better. Mm-hmm. And so they have their challenge matches. And then we just actually had that, I think, last week on Thursday, where we wanted to bump up Jared to fill a spot at 171. We thought it was a pretty important match that could help us get us over the top to win the match. And he's an awfully good wrestler at whatever weight class he's at. And we have another 150, he goes 152 and it goes to 60. That's a pretty good wrestler as well. Probably one of our top 5 or 6 wrestlers that doesn't always get to wrestle. So nice to be able to slide him into a spot to help the team. Jared could bump up another weight and help the team, and it's great to have that flexibility.
Yeah. So when you set it up, are you looking at other teams? Can you have the ability to scout other teams and see where their strengths are and try to pick out where you want to slot somebody?
With everything being electronic now, it's much easier to find that information than what it did, than previously, where you'd actually have to go and watch these matches, and it's tough to do in the middle of the season. So yeah, we're able to go in and kind of scan through, see where their strengths are, see how these other teams and individuals have performed against teams that we have also performed against. But it's not like we have so much depth and so many guys that we have a ton of room to move around. We're hoping to get to that point again. We've had that in the past where you can actually use that level of strategy because you've got 2-3 guys that you can work around and match up a little bit better. Our lineup is as such right now where it's pretty straightforward there. We don't have a ton of room to move. We have that opportunity to maybe move guys if we know that they're going to have to void this one weight class. Well, then now that gives us an opportunity, for instance, with our 103-pounder who's so strong, Cam, we can bump him up to 112 and split the difference on the void, but then actually pull ahead, on that other end. So that part we do watch, and there's different things that come up in the match. These guys at the beginning of the match will select on a coin toss, odd or even. And what that does is now that will select odd or even based on when we want their team to send their guy out first. And so that way they have to make a commitment, and then we can decide how we want to respond to that. But like I said, we're not quite where we would like to be, where we have that ability to do it, but we're headed in that direction there. And as far as the challenge matches go, it's been actually kind of nice in that both of us are pretty easygoing on the weight loss component of it there. When you start having guys really, really drop a lot of weight, a lot of things occur. It makes the practices more challenging. There's so much more focus on that, and believe me, I've done that in the past. And now that we've kind of moved away from that, most of the guys are at a fairly comfortable weight, and now it's not such a big deal if they have to go up, or even if they have the opportunity to go down. It's available to do that, but both mentally and physically, when you go into a meet, to try to move guys around after they've made weight, you have to have a pretty select group of guys that can do that without it impacting their performance there.
It's got to be good though as coaches, and I think back to football or basketball where yes, you can tell a better player, but it is still somewhat subjective from the coach's standpoint. But if you have a challenge match, it's just like running faster. If you run fastest, you win. If you win the challenge match, you wrestle. That's got to be a really good way of doing things like that.
It takes a little bit of heat off us. There are those unique situations where you'll have, just like in any sport, an athlete who can perform incredibly well in competition, but doesn't do as much in practice, or vice versa. And so there are times where those things do enter our mind and we have to make a decision, but we try very hard to base all of our decisions on what occurs in the room, who's able to beat the other guy there, and then the matches go on that. And then we have challenge matches every week, and we encourage everybody to challenge each other. Even if they think they're going to be beat, it's only going to make both of them better.
So you mentioned you have a number of inexperienced wrestlers or kids who are new to the sport. As coaches, what do you do to help them get just a technical knowledge? It's a very technical, difficult sport to learn. What do you do with some of those freshmen and sophomores to get them into the sport?
Well, like any sport, the number one thing is you got to go down to the fundamentals. And so rather than having and Hunter and Jared both do a great job of stressing to our less experienced wrestlers that it's not important how many advanced moves you have, nearly as important as it is that have a few that you can execute really well. So like a lot, we try to drill the real key ones, the ones that we're going to have to use 80% of the time. We try to drill those as much as possible, and then we also try to put them in situations, time situations during practice to not only drill them, but then also be able to use them in a more a high intensity situation.
Interesting. Well, that's a good transition to you two guys, and two seniors, Hunter and Jared, and again, thanks for coming on. We'll forego the kind of normal question I asked about how you got started and your father or your brother or whatever wrestling, because we did all that last year. So let's get into kind of like a little bit more about what you guys think about and do on the mat. And Hunter, maybe starting with you. You're a kind of a taller, lankier guy, not quote typical wrestler build, right? From your perspective, what advantages does that give you?
I feel like an advantage that I could have on the mat would definitely be my length. So some moves that longer people can do would be like a pick or a grab or something that obviously shorter limbed people can't do as well. I can cinch stuff up pretty well. I can make it very tight. I definitely have some advantages on the mat. I can be quicker too as well, being light and tall and being long as well. So it's sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's not so much a good thing.
So Jared, you're kind of to a certain extent, not the opposite, but certainly more of the stockier, compact, let's call it. That's a nice word, compact wrestler. What about you? How do you think about looking at your opponent? Would you prefer to wrestle another person with your build or someone built like Hunter?
No, I'd definitely rather wrestle someone kind of my build or even more compact than myself, because I'm good at what I do. I'll tire people up. When I wrestle these tall, lanky guys like Hunter here, sometimes he'll just wrap you up in something you can't even see coming. So it's hard. So I'd definitely rather wrestle someone more compact.
So I think it is a fair question to ask, though. Why do you like wrestling? I mean, you obviously you've played other sports. I know you're a very good football player, linebacker for a number of years at St. Clair. What is it about wrestling that you really like?
Honestly, I think it's the fact that it's just one-on-one. It's just you against this other guy. Football at the team, sometimes you kind of have other people you have to rely on, but when it's just you out there with another guy on the mat, it really shows all the work you put in the room, just you versus what the other guy did. So
let's take the other side of that coin, Hunter. What's the hardest part about wrestling for you?
Mental.
Tell me what you mean.
It's the mental part of it. So you can put in as much work as you want, but if you're mentally not prepared for the match, if you walk out and you're nervous and you're not confident and you're like, man, what if I don't do it right? Or if you walk out, like you said, if you have one move in mind, you know, you're only going to have that move in mind. You're not going to be able to branch out and think of other things to do. So it's definitely, I think, the mental aspect of it.
How do you learn new moves, Jared? And when can you figure that you can actually use that in a real match?
Well, a lot of them come from kind of watching other matches. You'll see something kind of cool that another guy do. Like, man, I kind of want to learn that. So you kind of just see it, and then you kind of start playing around with it in the practice room. Sometimes we'll have coaches here, especially Coach Denny. He'll show something, and having him show it on me, I kind of am able to pick it up just by feeling what he's doing, where the pressure is. It's a lot easier to learn it. And you have someone who knows what they're doing do it to you. You feel the pressure. You feel kind of what needs to be done. So. And
Hunter, who do you normally wrestle in practice?
I wrestle with Jared mostly.
Really?
And yeah, and then there are a couple other wrestlers. John Westfall, his nickname is Papa John. He's kind of a longer, lengthier kid like me.
Yep.
So I tend to wrestle kids who are stronger than me, one, so that would probably be Jared, and then two, someone who's like me as well, so I can get, you know, a broader practice.
So, just curious, you're grabbing on each other. What do you talk about? I mean, are you saying, Jared, I want to try something. Can you do this so I can try this? Is that how these things normally go?
Yeah, for sure. So if let's say you had a match and you did something wrong and it caused you to lose and you want to practice that, I could ask Jared to do the same thing that caused me to lose in the match over and over, and I could practice it.
Okay.
You know.
And do you know some of your opponents? And from a personal standpoint, you've been around for 4 years. Do you know some of the guys you're going to be wrestling from other schools and what they like to do already?
Yeah, quite a few of them. You know, some of these guys, even I started wrestling when I was really young. You see some of these guys, you kind of grow up with them, so you really learn kind of what they're good at, what they like doing, and just, you know, it's kind of a double-bladed, two-edged sword. They kind of know that you want.
Those cliches
yeah.
are always difficult.
Yeah.
6 of one, 2 dozen of another,
yeah.
that sort of thing.
So
right?
you know, they understand what you want to do too.
Sure.
So it works both ways.
So you guys are seniors, have kind of gone through the entire program. What motivates you now at this point, Hunter? I mean, what are you what's your driving force?
Me, this year, I want to prove to myself that I've put in enough work to be able to get to where I know I can get to. I want to be able to show myself that, you know, I've done the best that I can these past 4 years, and that I can get to the, you know, the level of, I guess you could say, technique and, you know, just a level of good wrestler that I think I can achieve.
Same question for you, Jared. What about you?
Honestly, what's driving me this year, last year I kind of had a tough loss at regionals against a guy I'd beaten the week before. So, you know, honestly, this year is kind of, I just want to go back and kind of prove I belong to go to that state tournament. And, you know, work all the time and outside the practice room as well. It's something I really want to go do this year. So.
Okay, good. Now, let me turn the question around. Ask the coaches what they're like on the sideline of matches. So, Hunter, from your perspective, how can a coach help you during a match? Not practice, but during a match. What are you looking for your coach to do?
So if during a match, usually at this level, if you're a senior, you know your own pattern. You know what you're good at and what you're not good at. But if you're usually in a match, like if you pause or if there's something like you forget or if you're lost and you don't know what to do next, that's when they'll pipe up. That's when they'll start saying things like, okay, try this, and then you'll go right into it. So.
Do they ever go crazy, do you think, Jared?
You know, sometimes they will, yeah. You know, if they'll get real excited if they see, especially when the younger guys hit something that we've just been working on.
Just like they said, right?
Yeah. So, you know,
that's really satisfying to the coach when
exactly.
you can see the direct impact. Well, listen, Jared, mentioned you've been around for a while, second time here, but you just hit 100 wins. What does that mean to you from an accomplishment standpoint?
First of all, thank you for acknowledging that. You know, it's a big accomplishment. You know, it's just kind of been, like you said, a long journey. It means a lot. Not a lot of people have this since we started the program. We've had four other guys do it.
Yeah.
So you know, it's huge. I'm still kind of in awe about it. You know, it's a big accomplishment. I'm proud. My dad's proud. He was kind of a big driving factor in that. You know, he had spent a lot of time with me when I was young, driving me all around all these tournaments. And he said he's real proud seeing it finally pay off. So
that's tremendous. So think back to when you were a freshman, and as Coach Nesbitt mentioned, maybe you had your face in the mat a couple of times. How have you changed as a wrestler since then? What's the biggest thing, do you think?
I think a lot of it's the mindset. When I was going out there as a freshman, I was thinking, all right, just don't get dominated. Go out there and just try. Whereas now I'm thinking, all right, let's go dominate this guy. And it's just been a complete 360 on my mindset. So.
That's first of all, again, congratulations. That's really terrific and something, because it means obviously that you've wrestled 4 years, but you've also been extremely consistent in terms of getting wins, and that's something that's really you need to be proud of. So Hunter, I'm just curious from your standpoint now as a senior co-captain, what do you do with some of the younger kids? We've talked about the inexperienced kids on the team. How do you help the freshmen and sophomores?
Mostly technique and drive as well in practice. Like today, we were at practice and we drilled a move, and me and Jared were drilling, and a couple freshmen called me over and was like, "Hey, I'm not really getting this. Can you show me?" And I showed him, and I walked over and I was watching from a distance, and they were doing it correctly, for what I could see. So, for me, that's pretty cool. Like, I like being a captain. I like helping younger kids. It really helps me step on the mat every day, like excited to wrestle. So.
Nice. So what about you, Jared? What's do you think the neat thing about being a captain? Pick something other than Hunter's.
Yeah, I kind of like having Hunter as a captain because he likes working with those younger guys, showing them more of the technique. Where I'll kind of show them the mindset. I'll motivate them. I'll try getting them as fired up as they can. So it's real nice having Hunter as a co-captain here. We kind of balance each other out. So.
Yeah, I'm not like a super
Seriously?
Well, I'm not a big motivator is what I'm trying to say, but Jared definitely fills that spot very well.
What's nice with both of them, and that's one of the things that Bill and I have noticed over the years, is they have a significant amount of patience with the younger kids. Treat them very well. There isn't any disrespect in the room or a hazing mentality or anything along that line, and that hasn't always been the case. And again, that's back to setting that tone in the room. And one of the things that we always talk about and you hear frequently in wrestling is that you're only, the guys on the team are only as good as the entire room is. And so when you have individuals like that can work with each other and trade off, we can have Jared or Hunter go wrestle with a younger kid and actually have it a very, very positive experience instead of them just going in and living their dream and beating on a young kid there where there's absolutely nothing to gain by it. And that's something we really enjoy.
So in other words, you got to expect, you obviously have it here with maturity from your co-captains, and that's probably why you selected them as co-captains to start with when it starts with.
Well, the maturity part too, though, is not just understanding how to wrestle. It's being confident with themselves enough to hold the other wrestlers accountable. And that also helps us as coaches, because when the coach is holding a wrestler accountable and making me maybe do extras, whatever it is we're having to do, or have to all of a sudden do something we didn't want to because we have to set a tone. When a coach does it sometimes from a kid's point of view, is that mean old son of a pupsky is just cantankerous today. That's not the words they'd use, of course, but I'm paraphrasing. But Hunter and Jared, again, that's one of the roles he does very well, is he holds them accountable. And if whether it's they're not working hard enough or they're not getting the mats out the way they're supposed to, all of a sudden they're doing something and they realize they messed up.
Right.
They're not mad at they're mad at themselves as much as Jared, because first of all he's doing it with them. Yeah. And working harder doing it as Hunter is. So when they're holding them accountable, but they're also doing the exact same thing and working harder at it, it's a lot easier for them to palate.
Well, they always say, right, the good teams have good coaches, great teams have great leaders among the team. And obviously that's the case here. So, heard it say many times that wrestling is one of those character-building sports. It's a very difficult sport, a lot of self-motivation. Jared, start with you. How has wrestling helped you be a better student, do you think?
Honestly, it's kind of taught me you have to be willing to sacrifice to get what you want. So, you have to put in countless hours of work when you're not really getting praised for it in that practice room, kind of same. You have to put in a lot of work outside the classroom to have success in the classroom. So, it's kind of taught me you got to sacrifice to get what you want.
Hunter, how about you? What do you think?
I don't know so much about the classroom, but if I was to say maybe person-wise, I would definitely say confidence. When I was a freshman and when I was in middle school, I was kind of a quieter kid. I did my schoolwork, kept my head down, but my brother asked me to join wrestling, so I did it, and I could say throughout the years I've made a lot of friends, and my self-esteem's definitely gone way up, and I feel good. I feel confident. I feel happy.
That's great. That's really a testament to you guys as well. So let's go back to the coaches here and kind of what's coming up now. We're probably about halfway through the season or 2/3 through the season. What's the next steps for you guys, Dave?
Well, this week we have our final home duel. It's our only home duel of the year, and it's our final MAC meet against Lakeshore, and that's on Thursday night at 5.
Okay.
And as we've indicated before, we're a cash-based program, so we have to fund everything ourselves. And this is also one of the ways we're able to do it. We're able to keep the gate receipts and everything, and along those lines, and it allows us that opportunity to send our younger guys into one tournament, and then our stronger individuals to another. And that's what we even decided going into this next weekend. We'll take some of the older boys over to Yale for an individual tournament there. That's an extremely tough tournament because it's starting to wind up at the end of the season. The guys are starting to jockey for position. This is a great opportunity for seeding, and it's amazing the intensity, how much it ramps up. But the bulk of our team is actually going to go over to Utica for a novice tournament where they're going to get matches that they can much more benefit from. And it'll still be tough. We tell our novice or JV anytime there, don't think that you're going over to there and that it's just going to be a cakewalk there. They're still going to have to earn it, but it certainly is much more at their level. And then after that, things really heat up very quickly there. We'll the following weekend we'll have our conference tournament for the MAC, and after that, then we get into our the team districts. That'll be at Marysville High School, and then we go into individual districts, and then regionals, and then on into state, the beginning of March.
Okay, so Bill, maybe talk about a little bit the difference between the team and the individual. Wrestling's kind of unique in the way it sets up the state tournament, right? Mm-hmm. So just tell what's the difference between the team and the individual, and how does that run?
I'm not quite.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's
The
two
difference
separate
between
tournaments.
the team districts and individual districts.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. That's probably, I'd say Dave probably answer that question better.
Yeah, what's really neat is that when I competed, back in the day, there wasn't a team states, and even the dual meets, it still had a much more of a feel for the individual
Right.
component of it, and so that's what I kind of grew up with, and even at the college level at that time, I was much more focused on the individual, and that's part of the thing that has really evolved in this sport is how much this has become much more of a team sport. And there's a lot more team tournaments. And then, so that actually is a much more enjoyable. When my son was wrestling, he enjoyed the team aspect of it more so than the individual. Even though he's very successful at the individual part, he enjoyed that part of it a whole lot better. And so as we go into team districts there, we'll match up with Armada and then hopefully with Marysville. And if we win the team districts, then we advance to the regional. And obviously, it narrows the competition, ramps up so intensely
Right.
At that point. But it is a lot more fun. To go to a tournament and have all of your team there going against another team, it's a lot more fun for the parents and everybody involved than at an individual tournament where it's scattered, it's haphazard all day, and there are guys coming and going and everything. But for most wrestlers there, that's, as Jared's indicating there, that's kind of that ultimate event, is to be able to advance and move forward on the individual part. There's a much better chance that guys will have that chance to move ahead there. The team part is pretty limited with the number that make it, and at this point with our program we have a ways to go to be able to advance very far there. So yeah, as we start to get towards the end there, our focus is going to be on that individual component to try to get as many guys through to regionals as we can, which is a huge honor, and then on to the state meet there where things heat up very quickly.
So how do they qualify for individual regionals and?
With it there. Well, at individual districts there, it's usually a 16-man bracket, and they narrow it down, and the top 4 then from each of these different districts then now converge onto one regional. And I think it's the 4 districts go to the one regional, right?
Yeah.
And then they start to move forward after that, and it ramps. I'm sorry, no, I think it's 2 districts go to one regional there, and then the top 4 from that now go on to the state meet there. So like I said, the numbers but it is just absolutely amazing to see the quality and the intensity and how much that ramps up during those last few weeks there. It really is impressive.
Yeah, Bill, what were you going to say?
Well, you're talking about the team aspect and the individual. That's why I wasn't sure where you were going with the original
Yeah, sorry.
question. No, that's all right. It was just the way I understood it. But the neat thing is, as Coach was alluding to, adding more of a team aspect, because it does enhance the individual aspect. And the kids are understanding that the harder you work as a partner, not only do you make yourself better, but you're making the person you're working against that much better. Whether it's working on moves, whether it's working on intensity, or even our kids do a great job if there's somebody that's maybe is real close to being not cutting weight, and staying in the room extra long with them to just give them some extra time and extra effort to get that off. So I really enjoy that the team aspect, and our team, I think, has done a pretty good job of embracing each other as much as themselves.
I think that's one of the neat things. Again, a lot of individual sports in high school with swimming and wrestling and a lot of the track and field, but every time I talk to the athletes and the coaches, they're always talking about how the team is an important aspect of it, even though the competitions themselves are individual. And then obviously you've done a great job. So Jared, you mentioned, who do you think is going to be some of your competition to get to that individual state?
I'm really not sure, honestly. You'll always have some good guys in your district, and then from there it just kind of ramps up.
Yeah.
So you got to wrestle, you wrestle, and honestly, it doesn't matter. So.
What about you, Hunter? Same kind of question.
Yeah, well, I mean, we wrestle, the two weights that are up. There's a bell when it comes to the weights. So like 45 to maybe 71 is the top of the bell, where like most of the wrestlers, converge, and there's going to be a lot of kids, so we'll just have to see.
That'll be interesting. Well, listen, I want to thank all you guys for coming again, Dave and Bill, Jared, good seeing you, and Hunter. Good luck the rest of the season. I do want to make sure that everybody heard. Dave, just say again that the home meet is this Thursday?
Our home meet is Thursday night at 5 o'clock against Lakeshore, and so we'd like to have a good turnout. And the other thing I'd like to mention real quick is that our program really can't even hardly exist without our middle school program. And in this middle school is just now ramping up, and they actually have a new coach with Mitchell Hilton, has taken over the head coaching job. Kevin McKiernan has stepped down for a period of time. But we're really looking forward to him to kind of keep that part going, because that's where you develop the interest. That's where you get the kids excited about it. And then we're hoping that we can kind of continue to keep that momentum going. And they've had some real big teams, which has really paid off for us.
That's terrific. Again, thanks so much for coming in, and good luck here in the next couple of weeks. And for you guys, definitely have a great final part of your senior season. All right, that's it today from Press Box. John Carter along with the wrestling team. We'll see you again soon next week. Bye, everybody.